you might have just okay that. It's now streaming.
We're good.
We're good.
Good start.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Well, good morning. Warm welcome to today's hearings for the Lavins on the Uxbridge Road. My name is Councillor Julian Gallant. I'll be chairing this meeting. And with me are my colleagues, Councillor Rima Barclini and Councillor Kim Nagpal. And we are the subcommittee today hearing this hearing. With us is Ms. Hatoun Zeb, who is the legal advisor to the subcommittee, and Sean O'Brien is the Democratic Services Officer, who is the clerk to the subcommittee and who will be minuting this meeting. So could we just start, please, by everyone who I have not mentioned just introducing themselves. We start with actually the applicant, Jason. I've got Jason Morley, but obviously I don't see Jason there. So if you could just tell us.
I'm Amber Slack.
Amber.
Hi.
Yeah. All right.
I'm Janet Slack.
Hello, Janet. Yes. Okay. So, and Amber, just we had a quick question. We obviously Janet Slack is the applicant.
Yeah.
We've seen Amber replying to to Bob Deere at some point. We wanted to know who Amber was. So that's you, obviously.
Yes. Hi. I'm Janet's daughter, and I run the pub with her, basically.
You run the pub with her. So okay. So you're together. Fine. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Nick, thank you very much, Nick. Semper, Nick, could you just introduce yourself?
Good morning.
Hi.
My name's
Which Nick?
Yeah.
I think he's doing our side first, Nick. So
Okay.
if I go first, I'm Nick Semper from the licensing guys, and I'm representing the applicant here this morning. Good morning to you all.
Good morning. Yeah. So Sean, could you just rename Nick Semper, please? He is not an objector. Nick is obviously the representative of the applicant. Is that right? Yeah. Just check that name, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. And Nick Dewey, just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nick Dewey, and I am an objector.
Thank you very much. Great. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to go straight in. You will have all seen this. Everyone's seen the agenda pack containing the licensing officer's report with details of the application in section 1. So to confirm, we are dealing with a new premises license application in relation to Lavins 97 Uxbridge Road, Ealing W73ST. And we also note that the premises license has received 2 objections from residents in the area. So now what I will ask the applicant, please, to present the application and then take any questions and call any witnesses. Now, who is going to do that? Nick, are you going to do that, or is Janet going to do that?
That's going to be me, sir.
That's okay. So, Nick, if you go ahead, please, and if you present the application.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Can I just ask Amber and Janet to set themselves to mute, please? Would that be okay, guys?
Yes. So that you. I'm so sorry. So that you can't hear us.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
You
then
set
you
yourself to
sorry.
mute when you. It's all right. It's okay.
I don't use Zoom very often.
Okay.
It's all right.
Thank you very much. All right. So, Nick, if you.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. I am Nick Semper from the licensing guys, and we're representing the applicant here today. The applicant is Fisher Hub Limited, here in the persons of Janet and Amber Slack. So what are we proposing? Lavins is a pre-existing licensed premises which operated under a previous premises license, which lapsed when the hold of that license, being a company, was dissolved in April of this year. The applicants were not aware that a premises license dies when the company which holds it is dissolved, and therefore this new application was necessary and is now before you. Now, it is true that the applicants are not well skilled in licensing law, hence my presence, and therefore the initial application applied for things that some of which largely they didn't need. On receipt of the representations from Mr. Dewey and the other residents regarding the application, Amber and Janet duly noted the concerns raised by some of these neighbours and removed from the application live and recorded music and the performance of dance. Therefore, no form of regulated entertainment is still entailed in this application. All that remains now is for the on-sale of alcohol, or pretty standard stuff for thousands of pubs and bars across the UK and across your borough in particular. So, as you'll be aware, each application must be judged on its own facts and merits. The significant merits of this application, it is a quality application correctly conditioned with specific, appropriate and proportionate control measures, thus minimising any potential that any of the licensing objectives would be undermined. Furthermore, the recommendations of the licensing authority themselves, made by the good person of Mr. Bob Deere, who's well known to all of us, his recommendations were also taken on board and have been incorporated into the operating schedule before you. Now, as an overview, in this hearing, the burden is on the applicant, i.e. Amber and Janet and me, to show that the proposed operation supported by the proposed and now amended operating schedule is capable of promoting the licensing objectives and will not undermine them. Any representers, like Nick, opposing the application, have the burden to show that these premises trading under the comprehensive operating schedule before you will undermine the licensing objectives and demonstrate that with evidence. In our submission, any subcommittee properly advised could only refuse this application if it is found on the evidence of the representers to be not capable of promoting the licensing objectives. So you may ask yourselves, why do representers, aka objectors, need to produce evidence? Well, the answer is found in para 9.43 of the section 182 guidance, which I'm sure you're pretty familiar with, which clearly states, and I quote, the authorities, i.e. your determination, should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to that which is sought to be achieved. So let me first talk you through who has, or actually in this case, rather who has not raised any form of representation or objection. The licensing authority, Mr. Deere, being the lead responsible authority for all licensing matters in Ealing, his suggested amendments have been adopted, and therefore there is no extant representation from the licensing authority. The police, being your lead and expert source of, being the lead responsibility and source of all expert evidence on crime and disorder and ASB issues in Ealing, they've made no representation. Trading Standards and Children's Services are the responsible authorities that protect children from harm. Public Health that deal with substance misuse, any form of substance misuse, might I add. And the Planning and Highways Departments and Environmental Health being the experts in noise and pollution, and therefore the lead agency on the protection of public nuisance. They in Ealing, they all raise no objections either. So this hearing is an evidence-based decision-making process. You as a committee cannot be insensible to the fact that not one of your lead and expert responsible authorities has objected to this application or has presented any evidence against it at all. You can therefore rightly assume in my submission that, in the opinion of all the responsible authorities, your professional and experts, witnesses for the better, organisations, right? This application does not undermine the licensing objectives. Otherwise, they would be here with evidence to argue vehemently against it, as is their statutory duty. Now, there is some mention of the hours required, that the hours required are outside the core hours specified in the special policy area, in which it undoubtedly lies, this premises undoubtedly lies. So that I'd say that special policies such as your own were applied to prevent an expansion of activities which would be likely to add to cumulative impact in any given area. Well, here we are simply replacing a premises license for one which had previously lapsed, like for like, replacing what was there before. So there can be no increase in cumulative impact whatsoever. And although the special policy might apply to this area, it cannot in itself be offended, as there is no foreseeable risk of likelihood that this application will add to pre-existing cumulative impact because it's simply replacing what was there before. Now, there are two objections from local residents. These, no doubt, come from good people. We've got one of them here today. And Amber and Janet and myself, we thought hard about what they're telling us. And we've wrote to those nearest to us. And consequently, as a result of our considerations of their concerns, we've actually dialed down the application accordingly. Now, they tell us, the objectors tell us that this is an extension to that which was permitted by the previous license. I'm not sure that's absolutely right. as originally as the application as originally made was a replica of the pre-existing license for this pub, and the reference number for that is 20/LIC/21971 Prem. Just to read that into the records. In fact, this application before you, as now amended, actually asks for less than the previous premises license, because the provision of live and recorded music and dance used to run until 1 o'clock on the old license. But in this new license, all regulated entertainment has been done away with. It's simply not before you. Now, they tell us persons who are presumed to be our customers are accessing and trespassing on land at the rear of the premises. This was news to us, but we have remedied that by fitting a keypad lock to the rear exit that stops any unauthorized access from our premises to this portion of land. Now, the objectors, they talk about a fence which seems to be broken by our customers. Again, news to us, but we have offered to repair it. We've also offered to fit a keypad lock to the access gate to this portion of land, with the code only being shared amongst the residents if they wish to go down that route. So whatever Nick Dewey wants today around that, we'll be pleased to accommodate. Now, they complain about the use of a smoking room at the back of our premises. This space, I should say, has now been put beyond use of smokers due to the conditions recommended, insisted upon by Mr. Deere. So that's already in the conditions that we have accepted. And lastly, there's a worry that the noise from the loud noise of music or loud music, whatever, noise nuisance will emanate from these premises, the sound of music. Now, as I've said, that is now addressed in that any request for regulated entertainment has now been expunged from the application, and therefore this issue no longer is before you in my submission. Now, incidentally, the Section 182 guidance has made it absolutely clear that environmental health, your environmental health department, are the main source of advice to the licensing authority in noise and litter. And I would respectfully remind you that they take no issue with this application as it was when it was unamended, but it's been significantly dialed down since. Okay, as further reassurance. I'd like to talk to you very briefly about fear and speculation, if I may. The objector speculates that were you to grant this license, and they fear there may be problems. Okay, two main things why fear and speculation are not admissible in these proceedings. Firstly, para 9.43 of the Section 182 guidance, which I've already read to you word for word. I'll just remind you, it says that the authority's determination should be evidence-based. Fear and speculation about what might or might not happen at some undisclosed point in the future, that I'm afraid is not evidence. That is fear and speculation. It is what it is. Okay. And secondly, there was a ruling in the case of Daniel Thwaites and Wirral Magistrates back in 2008 in the Queen's Bench Division, and there in High Courts at Queen's Bench Division, and there the judge in the case, who was Her Honour Justice Black, in her judgment indicated that your decision making should be actuated by proper, inverted commas, proper, and inverted commas again, real evidence. There is no recorded history of problems with these premises that we're aware of. Obviously, we've read Bob Deere's representation as originally made, and we've taken on board all of his recommendations. So, you know, we believe that the potential for any such issues is more than properly addressed in the proposed conditions that have been signed off by Mr. Deere. So, lastly, in any event, Parliament has already provided the mechanism to deal with future problems emanating from around licensable activities at this or indeed any licensed premises across Ealing. That, of course, is the Section 51 premises license review. You're more than familiar and not at all scared to invoke that. In fact, I appeared before a review hearing in Ealing about a fortnight ago. So were you to grant this license and problems ensue in the future, well, I'm not saying there will be any, but were they to ensue, then the mechanism to control them is self-evidently provided through the aforementioned Section 51 review process. Now, look, a lot of these representations, or the representations want to sort of review. They're asking for a review of that which has gone on before. I would just point out that this isn't a review application. If they wish to bring a review, anybody can bring a review, okay? And you will hear it and you will deal with it, okay? This is simply an application and it concerns the operating schedule, whether it will promote or undermine the licensing objectives, and our position is it won't. It's not a review. That's I just flagged that up. This isn't necessarily this isn't necessarily the right forum to review what has gone on before in the recent or past history. So look, I'm going to rest now with your permission and deal with any further questions and queries in summary. But I would ask you to look favourably on this well-conditioned application for its pre-existing premises to be relicensed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Nick Semper, for that. So now, if we've got any questions, yes. Sorry, Hetty, yes.
Yes, Chair. If I may, legal advisor to the subcommittee. Just hearing Mr. Semper's representations. Mr. Semper, you've referred the committee to paragraph 9.4.3 of the section 182 guidance, and I just wanted to be clear on where you're saying you're reading that from. I have the section 182 guidance before me, and this is the December 2023 updated guidance, and paragraph 9.4 refers to relevant, vexatious and frivolous representations. I cannot see, unless I'm missing it, and perhaps you can take me to the relevant page.
I can take you straight to it. The trouble with these hearings is sometimes, just very, very occasionally, I mean, I've got a little bit of sort of high-pitched whistling going on in the background now. Occasionally, the soundtrack is taken down just a notch, okay? What I said was para 9.43, and I referred to it twice. So if I can dial you forward, please, to page 81 of the section 182 guidance, to para 9.43, where I'll read into the record that the authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of licensing objectives and proportionate to what is intended to achieve. Okay? Are we good?
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Semper.
Okay.
Thank you, Hattie. Cheers.
Hattie, are you happy with that?
Yes, indeed. It's just the initial, and I think it may well be the acoustics in terms of me being able to pick up. I noted on 2 occasions 9.4.3 as opposed to 9.43. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very happy to have that raised, and we've got that cleared up. That's good. So I'm going to ask colleagues, actually, they've got questions. I see Councillor Buckley, you've got a question for Nick Semper. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Semper, thank you for your detailed presentation, which in any case has answered many of my questions. I still have one question to ask in relation to the noise management, which was it was included in one of the conditions. I know that you just mentioned that there will be no live music, but will there be any kind of music played?
That's a very, very good question, and I'm sorry I didn't deal with it completely. There is a jukebox there, for example. Okay, that's recorded music, but what the Licensing Act, since the Live Music Act of 2015 came in, and I'm going to again defer to Hattie, but your legal advisor, what am I saying, right? Any live or recorded music on licensed premises involving audiences of less than 500 between the hours of 0800 in the morning and 2300 hours at night are no longer regulated licensable activities. Okay, so any music there, especially jukebox setting, ambience and whatever, but even acoustic performances and things like that, they're not licensable activities anymore following the 2015 Act, and therefore they don't actually sit before you. Your legal advisor, have I summarised that correctly, please?
Mr. Semper, if I take any issue with what you're advising the panel, I will intervene. So you can take it as it's fine unless I say otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, so for the sake of argument, you're saying that will stop by 11 o'clock. That's what you're saying. Live and recorded music will stop by 11 o'clock. Yeah?
That is exactly what I'm saying, Councillor.
Right,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair.
Councillor
So,
McKinley, keep going,
just
keep going. Yep.
to make it more clear, your applicant has indeed applied for hours beyond 11 p.m. So you are definitely sure that there will be no music played beyond 11 p.m.? Just to be clear.
I am definitely sure that there will be no regulated entertainment which involves live and recorded music beyond 11 o'clock on those premises, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Councillor, are you happy with that? Councillor
Yes.
Murphy, yeah, happy with that? Yeah, okay. So, Kim, Councillor Naipal, you got any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points of clarity. Bob Deere has suggested that the blind at the front of the shop to be open at all times or removed immediately. Amber's response to that was agreed. I just want to clarify if the intention is to keep them up at all times or to remove them immediately. I'd also just like to get a little bit more information about point 8 that was agreed to, that no more than 4 smokers will be outside the premises at any time. I just want to get some understanding as to how management intend to manage that and to ensure that that remains the case. Thank you.
Great. Okay, that's 2 questions in one. I'll deal with them both. Bob Deere's helpfully left it open to the applicants who make a decision whether they physically remove all window dressings or let them remain there as decorations but not ever be used. Okay, a window without any form of curtains just sometimes looks awful, to be honest with you. It looks open and makes the premises look void. What he's concerned about is that there's a historic report in his representation that there were some concerns about late night drinking there. Okay, that is okay to drink late night in a pub. What it isn't okay is to conduct licensable activities after hours in a pub. That is definitely a criminal offence. Okay, so what he wants is those windows to be kept open so people walking past can observe what's going on inside, which is a fair one, and we've been happy. He's left it open to us. The second one is, how would we make sure that no more than 4? That's a matter of the management of the pub. This is not a particularly heavy footfall location, right? And that is for the staff to make sure that people, their customers, I mean, they can't control the pavement. That's a public area, okay? And so, say, for example, I smoke and vape. If I'm walking past there and stand there and have a cigarette, it's not necessarily their responsibility. What it is their issue is their 4 smokers who are customers to make sure there's never more than 4 of them out there. That's my reading of it, ma'am.
Okay, that's answered. Thanks. Yeah. So I have a couple of questions, but I'd just like to see if Nick Dewey, you want to put any questions to Nick Semper or indeed the applicants?
Well, just a couple of points really. Though the blinds are currently still shut. They have been ever since I've known that the pub has been there. I understand from licensing policy 2020, which I've tried to have a read through, but it's about 90 pages. If an establishment is open past midnight, it's supposed to have SIA registered door supervisors. I don't believe Lavins do employ any. I'd also like to point out that the key code mentioned on the back door is a simple key code that is used on site hoardings, which has a key code on the outside. To open from the inside, it's merely flick a switch, turn a kit, turn a lever, and the door opens. So it doesn't stop people coming out. One of the issues with regards to noise.
You can put that in as in what you want to say, but just can you ask questions on what's been said already? That's what we want from you at the moment, if that's okay.
Well,
go ahead. I mean, I'll do. Go ahead.
Clearly, Nick's done this before.
I can answer some of these.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now the blinds may be down at the moment. Okay. It's not a condition for them to be up, so they've actually done nothing wrong. But if were you to grant this license today, then the blinds must be up. So that's the first one. Secondly, this issue with the key pad, my understanding is different to Nick's, because the keypad, and maybe, well, I mean, I've seen photographs of it, one of them, to go from the rear area into the public space via that exit, you need to know what number there is. So, I don't know, 0112 or something like that. You've got to be able to do that before you turn the main dial. And if you don't know, if you're inside that pub and you do not know what the key code is, so you can exit out the back, well, that's it. That's end of sports. Then nobody can leave that pub and trespass onto your sort of shared space, private area at the back, Nick. That's my understanding of it.
Can I raise a point then? If that is the case, why is that door classed as a fire exit? Because fire exits can't be locked. And my understanding, I've seen the keypad, unless they've changed it around, the keypad is on the outside, as it's been changed in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
My understanding is I got a photograph of it 2 or 3 days ago, and yes, it can be used as a fire exit, because staff will clearly supervise the dispersal from that premises in the event of an emergency via that door.
Okay, but if the fire happens between where the staff are and the rear smoking room, as it's always been known as, how does someone get through there to open the door? Not to mention the fact that actually, as soon as they step outside of that door, they're actually on the private land that is Bentley Close. They have no legal right of access through our land. It's not written into their titles. You're on mute, Nick.
You're on mute. Nick, you're on.
I'm awfully sorry. Okay,
go ahead,
so
go ahead.
I'm just trying to understand what Nick's saying. If in the event of a fire, you're saying that you wouldn't let people go onto this private land.
I'm not saying that, but I have to question the legality of that door, because it is, I know originally half of the, as it's always been known as, the smoking room, half of it was the kitchen and half of it was the garden. It's since the wall has been taken down and it's been covered and it's been a smoking room, which I have been told on numerous occasions is a council approved smoking room, which cannot be the case because it contravenes the current smoking laws. So yeah, I mean,
Okay, so the question is about that fire exit, about whether it's legal to have whether that is a genuine fire exit if it's got a lock on it.
Yeah,
I feel a bit sorry for the applicant here, because what they're trying to do is stop people leaving the premises via that back door.
No, the question is about whether a fire exit is a proper fire exit if it's got a lock on it.
That is a matter for the fire and rescue service, so we're going to have to take some advice on that.
Okay.
We've offered that to try and reassure Nick that our people will not get into the private shared communal area at the back. Now, if that is insufficient for Nick's purposes, or it offends what the advice from the London Fire Brigade is, then we will deal with that and we will inform Mr. D accordingly. The alternative is to leave it as a door that can be opened and members of the public can go through. However, it'll be an alarmed door, in as much that if any of our staff breach that door, any of our customers breach that door, then the staff can go there and give suitable advice and get it closed again. That would be the workaround. It's just that I'm a former police officer, I'm not a former fireman. Awfully sorry.
Okay, so we've got something to think about there. Thanks very much. Okay, and now, Nick, do you have any other questions about the premises or anything else on the representation?
One thing I would say is that there's constant mention to noise, etc., and the fact that the live music, etc., has been removed. It's not so much the noise emanating from that rear room as the music that can be heard. It's people in there. Half of that is it's poorly constructed. It's got a timber roof on it. I would say probably it's the existing fence from when it was a garden forms one of the sides. There's no sound insulation in there whatsoever. My property is probably 10 to 12 meters away from that door. I have 2 young daughters that sleep in the bedrooms at the front of the house. We cannot open the windows in summer because it's too loud.
Okay.
Okay, now I think it'd be really useful if I just take a step back here and we let Amber and Janet answer that about how they're going to address Nick's concerns.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yes, please. Yep. You're on mute, Amber.
Hi, Nick. Basically, we are going to put signs around all at the back just to say that we have to be considerate of neighbours. We understand if you have young children and we're not trying to keep anyone awake. Also, if you do feel that the soundproofing is an issue, I have no problem getting my builder to go down there and to have a look at how we can make it quieter for you. That isn't a problem at all.
Thank you very much.
No
Do you have
worries.
any more questions, Nick, or are you? I mean, you're going to come in later and give us a your statement, but have you got any more questions for now, or is that okay?
I guess from now, I'd say as well, there was a lot of reference to the fact that it's replacing an existing license, etc. But I believe they took over in 2020, and nothing's changed since they've come in. It's been exactly the same. I mean, I've lived here since 2016 when the properties were finished. The letter that was put through our door, I'd really love to know how GDPR works with regards to passing on details of addresses, etc., because I understand you're not really supposed to be doing that. But it's all a little bit too late. You know, if Amber, etc., had maybe introduced themselves when they took over to us.
Okay.
So
Can I say something?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
I honestly, when we took over, I don't know whether your complaints have gone to the staff and then they haven't been put forward to us, but I genuinely, until this moment, had never known that you had a problem. I have other local businesses. We don't just have the pub. I'm very professional and I would not want to upset where you live, especially when you have young children. If I'd have honestly known about this, I would have come to you a lot sooner. I really do apologize about all of this. We're not trying to create any problems for you or your family. And I took a wild guess at which house to put the letters in. I didn't particularly know. It's just that my landlord said that he'd had issues years ago, not now. And I just took a guess. So I apologize if you didn't like that. I was just trying to help.
No, that's fine. But it's
Sorry.
not. I don't think it's Eamon that has issues with us. It's us who've had issues with Eamon.
No, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant. But I'm sorry. I would love to try and work with you and get past this, honestly.
I'm sure you would, because with a footfall of between 5 and 20, could be very difficult for you to maintain the business.
Okay,
100%.
that is actually
that's a different
nothing
point.
to do with what we're talking about now. So we'll move on there. Now, Reem, have you got any more questions, or you got your hand?
Yes, Chair.
On you
Just
go.
going back to the back door. I just want to have a proper explanation, if possible, from Amber.
Yep.
Is the back door intended for the use of clients?
No, and it never has been. So I don't know whether at certain points when it's been quite warm, the staff member has left it open slightly and sometimes people have walked out. But what I'd like to add, please, as well is it's not only our pub that leads into that alleyway. There are actually 8 other residents and flats above that have an access to that alleyway too. So I understand they've had problems, but I don't always know if it's coming from us.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this instance,
Okay.
would it be okay if you agree on, let's say, a condition that would forbid completely clients from using this back door?
100%.
It's for
Yes, that's absolutely
maximum
fine.
emergencies, like for as your Mr. Semper had stated that it is used maybe as a fire exit. Am I right,
Yes.
Mr. Semper?
That's fine. That's no problem.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. So any more questions for the applicant? I actually got. I think you've cleared this up, but there was a slight mismatch between the original application and the subsequent conditions, and one of them was about would the premises license holder be in place when alcohol was being sold at any time that there was a licensable activity being in there. And then when we got on to the way Amber answered Bob Deere, it said that the premises license holder would only be there when karaoke was on or after 7 o'clock on a Friday. So which one is it?
Sir, it's the latter one. one
not
member of
actually-
staff,
okay.
one member of staff who has a personal license to always be on the premises during karaoke events, which I believe are on Thursday, and after 7 o'clock on a Friday evening.
Okay, that's the offer, yeah?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I believe that's bullet 6 of the 8 that were
It is
agreed
indeed,
upon.
but it didn't quite match up with what the original application was, and there's other things there. So that I wanted to clear that up. We talked about smoking. You've covered all that at length. I have a quick question, and it's more about. I mean, we're obviously concerned just as much with what goes on outside premises as what goes on inside premises, and we know this is a problem area. It's not your problem that Amwell Broadway is a problem with street drinkers. But I'd like to just hear what you've got to say about how you're going to help make sure that your place is not a nuisance.
Well, we have the comprehensive.
Yeah, I've seen all that. Yep.
Yeah, okay, and clearly there was some mention of SIE before. That it's the conditions applied have got to be appropriate to what is being proposed.
Yep.
For between 5 and 20 people, we do not need SIE after midnight, not for that footfall. Okay, but clearly, our staff, you've heard from Amber, and she is completely committed to making sure that there is no form of nuisance or misbehaviour emanating from her premises. She's apologised for what's gone on before, but albeit with a right that she wasn't aware. So I just ask you to press on, and if there are issues, sir, you've got your Section 51 review in your holster.
And noted that I just want to confirm it. You have stated that there's no off sales of alcohol, so nobody buys it, takes it. Right. Okay. Right. But at the beginning of the hearing, by the way, and you have to excuse me, I've got to say that the procedure, but you probably all know what it is that once we've had the statements and so on, then we will retire to consider our response to it. But we're not there yet. Because I'd now like to hear, Nick, you've had lots of questions, so we'd now like to hear, if everyone's happy with that, we'd like to hear what you've got to say about it in general, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, you've obviously read, I know my neighbour as well, Indy, you've probably read his, so I understand that he asked for one of our other neighbours to represent him, but it was actually refused purely because they are part of Bentley Close, and I understand as well, just as background, that all 9 houses in Bentley Close put forward individual representations, but there was a number of them either didn't receive the email or say they didn't receive the email that said they needed to provide their contact details, etc. I know of one that said they did but didn't put their postcode on, and everyone else, I believe, was a little bit scared to do so based on the fact that we assumed we were probably dealing with Eamon still, and we all know what he's like, but that's by the by. So yeah, really, as I say, I think the biggest issue we have is the fact that we have had, ever since we've lived here, we've had numerous occasions. I mean, I've lost count of the amount of times that we've had people come out on their phones, arguing, fighting, drinking, stood around smoking. When I was out with my 2 young daughters at one point, they were on their bicycle, and a gentleman came out of the pub, beer in hand, cigarette in the other hand, and stood there. And I said, "Can you go back into the pub, please?" He said, "Why? What are you going to do about it?" I said, "I'm just asking you to go back into the pub, please." He effectively refused, and this has happened on numerous occasions. It's been bliss for the last few weeks since you haven't been operating, because it's been quiet, it's been peaceful. We've had no trespassers. You mentioned the fact that there are other properties, etc., that use the alleyway. Yes, there are, but they don't stand there. They don't drink and they don't smoke out there, and they don't gather in groups and talk. I mean, you've mentioned the fact that you're in agreement that the smoking room will no longer be allowed, but that was one of the reasons why the back door was always open, because I would go in there and complain, and I was told the rear door is left open to let the smoke out of the smoking room, to which I would say, you're breaking the law with the smoking room, and there would just be nothing. The door would get closed. 10 minutes later, it'd be open again. You've mentioned as well about obviously Amwell not being probably the best place at the moment for street drinkers, etc. Our actual entrance alleyway to our close regularly gets used as a public lavatory. There's feces and urine in there. Urine every single day. Feces probably once every 2 or 3 weeks. The council won't do anything about it. We just think later drinking in the area is going to exacerbate this issue. I'm not saying it's always the people from the pub that do it, but if people leave the pub late at night after a few drinks, they're going to hang around. You're going to say you're going to do your best to disperse them, but they're not. I know what it's like. I've been there when I was younger. Go out with your friends, you leave somewhere, you get into a conversation outside. This conversation goes on for half an hour or so. All of a sudden, oh, need a pee. They're going to run up the alleyway and go to the toilet. It's just the way that it is. I've seen people get off the bus and walk around the corner and come up there and go to the toilet. So yeah, we're a community. There's 4 families in the area with kids between 2 and 10. We just don't feel it's a safe place for our kids to go out in our private gated courtyard to play because of people coming from the pub. Again, this was before Amber's and Janet's tenure, but 5 years ago, there was a gentleman left the pub and let himself into one of our neighbours' house to have a sleep on their sofa. At the time, they had 2 children, a 3-year-old girl and an infant girl. The husband of the house was upstairs changing the infant, and the 3-year-old girl discovered this strange man asleep on their sofa. I just do not think that's acceptable. The police were involved. There's a crime reference number for that, which I believe is, 1 second, grab that. 3474/23 sept 17. Now the understanding is that discussions were had with the then tenant owner of the pub, and it was agreed that that door would remain shut, and if it was ever left open, we could phone the police and they would come around. Now, it's just not happened. Back door is consistently open. It's worse at night when the kids are trying to sleep. It's terrible. I mean, you know, when people get together and drink, I'm not denying, you know, you have a good time, people get loud, but it's no good for our mental health, our well-being. You know, we get sleep is constantly disrupted. And you're saying here on a Sunday you're going to be open until 1:30 in the morning. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, we all work in the close. How can you expect people to get up to go to work on a Monday morning if they're potentially being disrupted until, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning? Yeah, the sound insulation is, as I've said, alluded to earlier, is poor. That rear smoking room, which no longer will be a smoking room, if you're going to have people in there drinking and laughing, it's no good. It needs to be solid construction. The roof on there is, I don't know, probably 20-30 years old. It's just some timber struts put across with some felt. It's like a shed roof. It's no good. There's a gap above the top of the door that's never been filled in, just lets air out, just lets noise out. So you can say the door can remain shut, but the noise levels will still emanate through, and they will still cause disruption to all of us. And I have in the past, okay, maybe not in the last few months, but I have in the past walked past the pub in the morning, taking my dog for a walk between 6 and 6:30 in the morning at a weekend, and I've seen people drinking in there. Maybe not since, but it has happened. Sunday morning at 6:30, I've walked past, managed to see through the blinds, and people have been drinking in there. You're shaking your head, Amber, but it has happened.
Sorry, I have CCTV. The only person that's in that place at that time in the morning is
Amber,
our
we're hearing a
cleaner.
statement. Sorry. You're hearing a statement at the moment.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise. I apologise.
You're welcome to come back in. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it does happen. Maybe not so much anymore, but it does happen. It has happened in the past, and there's nothing to stop it continuing to happen other than maybe. But as I said, I think this has happened since 2020. So since you've been in charge, this has happened, and we've seen no physical change. There's been no change whatsoever to the way the place has been run since you've taken over from Eamon, other than the fact that you don't just park your car in our courtyard on private land and use it as your private car park, which is what the previous owner used to do, Eamon. That's the only difference we've noticed, if I'm honest. I mean, I wish I could pick out loads of clauses and things like Nick did. As I said, obviously he's done this before, but for me as a resident and for my neighbours, it's, you know, unless something changes significantly with regards to noise and trespassing, then we are 100% against this, 100%.
So thank you, Nick. That's that. Now we may have questions for you. Councillor Barclay, you have a question for?
Chair, I have a question for Amber and Mr. Semper, but I don't think you've noticed. It was about,
well, go ahead. You can do it now. That's fine.
Yeah, it was about
go ahead. Go ahead.
How many clients do you expect at your busiest times?
Our busiest, probably around 15, maybe 20. We're a very, very small pub, and we don't get that busy.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you normally have a dispersal strategy for, like, you have applied for a license to open beyond 11 p.m. So what's your strategy? What's your dispersal strategy? I'd like to know, please.
As in to let people leave without lots of noise?
Yes.
To be honest with you, most people leave bit by bit. A lot of our customers are usually older gentlemen, so they do not stay out that late. When people are leaving, we'll say to them, finish their drinks, and they tend to go section by section and always through the front, never through the back. We also have signs about noise that when you're leaving, please be aware of neighbours. You know, we have neighbours, please keep quiet. And we just always, we just try and disperse them bit by bit rather than just say leave now and everyone's out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No worries.
Okay, so is that okay, Rima? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Kim, Councillor Nakval, you want to put a question or?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Amber, you have very passionately promised to have a builder come round and look at the roof.
100%.
So just to alleviate Nick's concerns, would you be prepared to accept that as a condition that the roof construction needs to be improved so that you can prove to us that it has sufficient soundproofing?
That's fine. No worries at all. I can get my builder over there. That's not a problem.
But you're happy for that to be a condition of the license?
Like I said, I'm not trying to be a pain. If it's really affecting his children's life or his life, I will fix it. No worries.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sorry, one more.
Go ahead, Kim, please. Yeah.
Amber, do you have CCTV at the rear of your pub?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and you'd be happy to provide police access to that if a resident was to complain about issues in the alley or people being allowed to exit the pub?
That's absolutely fine. Our CCTV is within that room pointing at that door. So whenever they need, police can come, they can take it, and you can see that there's no one going in and out of it. That's no problems.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nick Semper, you have any questions for Nick Dewey or?
Oh, other than to sympathise with his experiences, especially when the premises was managed by the previous occupants. But I can deal with it all in summary. So thank you.
All right, you can. Yeah. Okay. So Nick, just a quick question. I think you put it down. This was somebody that the incident of the sofa was when exactly?
2017.
Okay, so all right.
It was before their tenure, but as you said, there's been very little marked change on people coming out the back since. Okay,
and the urination and defecation in the back alley. When have you noticed that most recently?
It's well, there was a fresh one there, should we say, about 4 days ago.
Okay, fine. So
as I said, we can't. I'm just saying we can't. I did say we can't 100% say it is to do with people from the pub. But you know,
so we can't. Okay. I've got a question for the applicant. Nick Dewey's mentioned Sunday evening. Sunday evening is obviously pre-working day, unless it's a bank holiday Sunday, which can be treated like a Saturday, perhaps to some extent. Would you accept a reduction in the hours, drinking hours, then, and the closing? Would you accept an earlier drinking up time and an earlier closing time?
So it's not drinking till 1:30. It's
no, it's drinking till 1, is it? Drinking till 1 and closing at 1.
Indeed, yeah. And this is an absolute replica of that which went on before.
Yeah.
I mean, what you know, there's only one licensing authority in this conversation. That's you three.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have for Ealing what you want. We're just asking for what we had before. Yeah. And we've explained that the place is bristling with CCTV. If these behaviours continue, then the police can come. And in fact, the pub can't even operate unless the CCTV is working. Yeah,
okay, yeah. But a narrow question actually for you is just that would that be an acceptable situation, or do you feel that commercially speaking you need to be open until as late as that on a Sunday evening?
We would prefer the hours as applied for.
Okay,
really, that's what we've applied for. But
yeah.
It's a matter for you, sir. You know,
but you know, we're in dialogue here, and
I'm with you. I'm with you.
We're in dialogue here to see what can be accepted. Okay. So my final question, if I may, for the applicant on that door. Noted you've taken it upon yourselves as a major responsibility to make sure there is no egress or access via that back door. Now the question is, and we haven't answered this question yet, how can it still be a viable fire exit? You know, how can it be a viable fire exit which needs to be openable very quickly in an emergency and still be a door that people can't get in and out of on an ordinary basis?
Well, that was my observation about we need to consult with the fire and rescue service. But look, if Nick doesn't like the idea of the keypad or if that offends the fire service, not a problem, because what you do is it is still a fire door, okay, with the crash out bar as available. Well, you put an alarm on it.
Yeah.
So if that is ever opened, there's a big, you know, the alarm sounds in the bar, and the bar staff have the duty to go and close it because you're not allowed to muck about with fire exits. You're not allowed to pop them open, and all the rest of it. Okay, that's fire doors. So if the keypad seriously isn't working for Nick, or it doesn't accord with the what the fire brigade want, we will fit an alarm. Okay.
Thank you very much. That's good. Okay, that's what we want to hear, and that obviously will prevent it from being accessible from outside. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Now, do we have any more questions from colleagues? No. Questions either way to the objector or from the objector? Okay. So we'll move to summing up now, if that's okay. Nick Dewey, would you like to say something in general response?
No, I don't think so. I think I've put our case across. I mean, we're not trying to be difficult. We're not trying to, you know, make it impossible for Amber and Janet to run a business. It's just the way it is at the moment is just no good, and it hasn't been, and there's been no change since they've taken over. Yeah, you know, we are against the license purely because we're all, you know, we're a community of young families around here, and it's no good for our kids. The abuse and the language that gets held at anyone and everyone that questions anyone that comes out of that pub is obscene. I mean, I work in construction. I deal with people who, you know, who don't talk particularly well, and every other word is a 4-letter word, but it's like dealing with sailors, should we say, sometimes. And yeah, I'm you know, I've got nothing more to say really.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, thank you for your for what you said and your questions. Very helpful. And I think we'll move to the applicant now, or to Nick. You want to sum up and give your views?
Certainly.
Views?
Yeah, we're not insensible to what Nick and the residents are saying. That's why we've already dialed down the application. I'm very sorry to hear his testimony about the problems that have been going on. Okay, now look. The smoking room, let's break it down one at a time. The smoking room, gone, okay? the back door will be that will be addressed, and Councillor Rima has very rightly pointed out she wants to make it a condition that there will be no use as an entry or an exit by customers through that door. Condition, that's in law, that's set in stone. The use of the alley as a lavatory, we've actually taken evidence that people getting off buses go down there and defecate. I don't know why somebody necessarily who's got access to a pub would then go outside and pee outside unless that pub was closed. So it's going to be a very temporal window of time where that can happen. Now we've offered to Fed because Amber's got access to a building company as well. She's got several businesses, and she's offered to put a gate on there with a keypad for the residents, which is more than generous. Okay, and that should stop all trespassing, whether they're a notional customer of hers or whether it's the observed bus passenger getting off the bus and going for relieving themselves up there. Okay, now clearly whatever has gone on most recently has not been coming to Amber's attention, and she's apologised for that. What I think we need to do is actually swap mobile phone numbers, for want of a better word, have some kind of a problem telephone number that gives the residents access to Amber almost 24/7. So when there are problems, she's getting real, timely intelligence on what is going wrong. Okay, and what she can have a look at a CCTV, she can work out whether it's her customers doing it, and if it is, she can deal with it. She will address it. She's already promised you to do that. I think it'd be really useful if the residents and Amber and her team, her builder in particular, were able to do a site visit, have a site meeting, and then go through the sound insulation and go and work through these hygiene factors, work through these safety factors. I think that if Nick and his residents were to report rude behaviour from Amber's customers directly to Amber, I think she can address it, and that can be through pub watches, that can be through premises bans and what have you. But she can't necessarily fix things she's not told about. She's explained that she's heard what they've said and she's going to address it. So perhaps that would be a way forward. The business of what happened in 2017, I know it's horrendous, this sofa serving burglar basically, but actually that's got nothing to do with Amber. It wasn't her pub. It really sets the scene of the history of the problems they've been having down there, but it's actually nothing to do with her, and therefore it cannot really be held against her. So look, what I'd finish off with is this, just to remind everybody this hearing is simply about whether this established bar operating these hours in accordance with the operating schedule, including that comprehensive raft of conditions as amended at the request of Mr. Deere, including that thing about CCTV incidentally. If there are issues in the pub, just tell Mr. Deere, just tell the police, because they'll be able to come in and look at the CCTV and confirm whether it's right or not. So, and then you've got your review, or you've got your usual sort of, your management remedies that can be invoked at that stage. Okay, but this is about whether this operating schedule will undermine or promote the licensing objectives. It's not a review about what's gone on back in 2017, even though that is very valuable testimony for us to take on board. Very clearly, our position is that this operating schedule will not undermine the licensing objectives, and all the responsible authorities in Ealing raise no issues with its substance, its content, and the additional inbuilt safeguards. Now, there's clearly been a history there, but actually not a great deal of these problems seem to have been reported to any of the responsible authorities. Okay, there is on the papers before us no confirmed recorded history or indelible evidence from responsible authorities, of noise nuisance, pollution, safety, ASB, drugs, crime, disorder issues concerning the operation of these premises. And there is nothing to the detriment of Amber and Janet to say that to suggest that she will not take on board exactly what we've been discussing today and fix it. Okay. Like I say, this is not a review, and this is not the right forum to air grievances about what has gone on before. But look, we have listened And we've responded to the concerns of the representatives, and we will continue to respond. Let's have a meeting. Let's have a site meeting. Let's get this all sorted out. These gaps around doors, the thickness of or the thinness of the fencing and what have you, about sound insulation and what have you. We've already removed all requests for regulated entertainment from the application. We've closed that smoking area. We've fitted locks. We've offered to fit others. And we've offered to mend fences in both sort of senses of the words. Okay, physically mend a fence, but obviously metaphysically mend the fences, the broken fences with those representatives. Okay, so consequently, I respectfully request that you do indeed re-grant, for want of a better word, this license as sought, supported by the comprehensive raft of effective conditions and any others, like Reema's come up with one, and the other councillor, I'm awfully sorry, Councillor Nagpal, that was a useful contribution as well. And so there any others that you think will add to the guarantees that none of these licensing objectives will be undermined. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Nick. Now that's you've had the last word, so that is it for this part of the proceedings. Unless Hattie's got anything to add. Hattie, you
Chair,
okay?
Yes, Chair, if I may just
ask
Mr. Semper perhaps to address the committee on one matter which it doesn't appear he's perhaps clarified. So Councillor Nagpal specifically spoke with Amber regarding the roof construction improvements for sufficient proofing as a potential condition to the license. And I wonder whether Mr. Semper wanted to clarify to the subcommittee whether indeed that is something that he would be advising Ms. Lack to implement, and if so, what is the wording that he's proposing for a condition for the subcommittee to consider and or not?
Yeah, well, you see, the thing that the catch-all on this would be no noise or vibration shall emanate from the premises to cause a disturbance to the nearest local residents or nearest noise receptors. Whichever model condition you use down there in Ealing, we will take. And under that umbrella comes in everything I've suggested, i.e. the engagement, the site visit, the improvements to sound insulation, the builders putting things right. So I don't know what's currently on there at the moment, because unfortunately I'm looking at a screen rather than mounds of paperwork in front of me. But if you were to put in no noise or vibration shall emanate from the premises so as to cause a nuisance to the nearest noise sensitive receptor, that should just about do it, in my opinion.
Okay. Right. That's it for this part of the proceedings. Looking at anyone else want to add anything, so we'll now go offline. And if you could retire, stay in the waiting room, and then we'll readmit you when we've deliberated. And I'm going to put that at 12:40. Okay.